I transmigrated into the daughter of a vicious cannon fodder character. At 1 year old, I managed to give myself a high fever, forcing him to abandon following the villain into a gang fight. At 3 years old, I schemed to fracture my own leg, making him miss his destined encounter with the female lead. At 5 years old, I used a pedophile to successfully prevent him from collaborating with the villain against the male lead. Simon, later on, the cannon fodder father screamed in terror, "Simon! Get your son's hands off my daughter's face, off." Can you imagine a villain who commits murder, arson, and every evil deed transforming into a desperate dad overnight? Calling him a villain would be giving him too much credit. After all, I've never seen a villain who, at the start of the story, was both blind and crippled, then thrown into the sea by the male lead to feed the sharks. Because the real villain of this novel is beautiful yet ruthless, fights the male lead, steals the female lead, goes crazy at any moment, attacks everyone indiscriminately, and only gets their comeuppance at the very end. And when this fake villain dies, the actual plot has barely reached 10%, with the remaining 90% being all about the male and female leads' anguished love and their life and death struggles with the real villain. So calling them a malicious cannon fodder character is more accurate. You agree, don't you? My father in this lifetime, Dad held a cigarette between his lips. Leaning halfway against the windowsill, the smoke blurred his handsome, sharp features, exuding a silent, unrestrained arrogance. Though he had just turned 20, there was almost none of the youthful naivety about him, only the ruthless indifference forged in a bloody quagmire. I quipped, a protagonist's face, a cannon fodder's life. System, sigh, it's normal, for supporting characters who like the female lead. Even if they're just cannon fodder, looks are always the top priority. Just turned 1 year old, I was practicing walking. A child's bones are soft, and the body is still getting used to balance. One careless moment, my left foot tripped over my right, and I fell flat on my face. The worried dad wrapped all the sharp edges of the furniture in the house with foam, afraid I'd bump into them while learning to walk. I pondered, you're saying my dad will go fight the villain in a few days, then get his eye pierced by shrapnel and become one-eyed? The system solemnly replied, yes, this is a plot outside the novel. When he appeared, he was already blind in one eye, which would become the trigger for his psychological distortion and violent, sinister nature. But hey, host, general plot details can't be revealed. Even if you say it, it'll be censored. Dad noticed me wobbling toward him at that moment and immediately cursed. Damn it. He stubbed out his cigarette butt and tossed it into the trash, opened the window to its fullest, and waved away the lingering smoke in the air. I specifically went to my own room to smoke and unwind. And you still follow me? Are you that clingy? Go, get out. Don't breathe in this secondhand smoke. I almost forgot I was just a toddler. The smoky air stung my nose, and I instantly turned around, covering my nose as I dashed for the door. Daddy, it stinks. The dad was so disliked that he had no choice but to change his clothes and rinse his mouth 3 times before he could finally hold me. He casually warned, if you see me smoking in the future, don't come near me, stay away. I nodded, my little hand pressed against his handsome face, nearly drooling. To be honest, although this dad of mine is as cold-blooded and ruthless as a villain, dripping with venom, his face is truly good-looking. I gestured, Daddy, stay with me, these days. A 1-year-old's language system is just starting up, unable to form fluent sentences yet, only able to blurt out words one by one. Daddy held me by the waist, leaning back on the sofa and letting me touch his face, his eyes brimming with a tender smile. All right, these days I'll spend time with my little darling. Just then, his phone rang. Daddy raised his hand to answer. Hello, Lucas. System, did the villain call your dad? Damn, it couldn't be to ask your dad to go with him too. I faintly heard a rich, deep voice coming from the phone. Brandon, the day after tomorrow, arms deal, you and me together. If they dare mess with me, I'll wipe out their entire base. Hearing there was trouble brewing, my usually lazy dad suddenly perked up. Leo's always been a troublemaker. You jacked up the price several times back then. You think he doesn't hold a grudge. What should be a smooth deal is probably going to turn into an ambush. I slapped my hand over his face. Hey. Dad pulled my little hand away and gave it a squeeze. Stop fussing. Your dad's handling serious business. I glared at him. What you call serious business is murder, arson, and underworld dealings. You're going to lose an eye. You know that. Dad couldn't hear the cries in my heart, adjusting his posture to let me lean more comfortably. I said, yeah, the villain laughed, his voice lazy and pleasant. Oh, Is the little piggy next to you too? I was furious. You're the pig. Your whole family are pigs. Just because I ate a bit more and was a bit chubby as a baby, this jerk called me fat like a pig. I still remember my first meeting with the villain. The villain was dressed in a wine-red suit, his strikingly beautiful face like a demon reborn into the world, though he wore a faint smile. His alluring fox-like eyes were cold and heartless, too beautiful, unlike my father's handsome, manly, and sharply cold features. The villain resembled a poppy swaying gently. Grown in hell and soaked in blood, exquisitely beautiful yet exquisitely dangerous. As someone who's obsessed with looks, I was instantly utterly enchanted and just about to reach out for a hug. Then this beauty opened her mouth and said, "Brandon, did you raise a pig? So fat, aren't you afraid of crushing the stroller? As a girl, you must never be called fat. Looking handsome won't save you." So when he leaned in close to examine me, my arms that were originally reaching for a hug turned into fists, landing 2 solid punches on his face. From then on, I earned the nickname, Little Pig. The villain teased lightly, "Has your daughter started talking?" Dad scratched my chin. "She just started these past few days," he said with great enthusiasm. "Do you know what her first words were?" She said, "Daddy, I love you." I was so happy I nearly fainted. The villain teased me. "Come on, call me uncle," I said. "Piggy pig," Dad said. "I told you she holds grudges, but you wouldn't listen." The villain casually changed the subject, ready to discuss something bloody and brutal with Dad, like skinning so-and-so, crushing so-and-so's legs, or chopping off so-and-so's fingers. Dad, afraid of scaring me, set me down on the ground and told me to go play somewhere else. I walked to the balcony on my own and happily discussed with the villain how to double-cross each other. After their conversation ended, Dad picked me up with one hand and made me a bottle of milk, his movements so practiced it was heartbreaking. "Sweetheart, I'm sorry, but I have to break my promise. I need to go out for a few days to take care of something very important. Be a good girl and wait for me at home, okay? Tell Monica whatever you want to eat," clutching the bottle. I tilted my little face up and pleaded pitifully, "Daddy, don't go, stay home with me." Dad crouched down and patted my head. "No, this matter is very important." I stared at him gloomily. Dad didn't even blink as he met my gaze, the tactic of wailing. I had used it countless times since infancy to ruin Dad's plans of teaming up with the villains. A baby's crying can still be considered an instinctive reaction. But now that I'm 1 year old, it's no longer acting cute, it's throwing a tantrum. I said slowly, "Okay," but secretly, I asked the system, "I remember there's an item in your shop that can make someone run a high fever, right?" The system replied, Yes, host, are you thinking of?" I said, "I can't just stand by and watch my dad become disabled. How long can this prop last?" The system replied, 3 days, and there are no side effects. I said, "That's enough," just as Dad was gearing up, eager to follow the villain to overturn tables and kill people. I've already taken the pill given by the system and swallowed it. 1 minute later, I sat on the ground, feeling weak. 5 minutes later, the entire person was burning with fury. The nanny Monica had just made me some lean meat porridge. When she tried to pick me up, she touched my scalding skin. Monica, scared out of her wits, picked me up and rushed me to the hospital. The driver floored the gas pedal, and the car sped off. On the way, she took my temperature in disbelief, 40 degrees Celsius. My face was burning red with fever, my whole body ached, and I sobbed as I called for Dad. Monica frantically called my father. "Sir, the young lady has a fever." It was noisy on Dad's end of the line, and faint airport announcements could be heard in the background. Dad seemed stunned as if struck by a stick. "What did you say?" "Crystal has a fever," Monica spoke rapidly. I had just finished making lean meat porridge and was about to feed Miss when I noticed her body was burning up. I just took her temperature. "It's 40 degrees. We're already on our way to the hospital," Dad exclaimed. "What?" I whimpered and squirmed, feeling miserable and aggrieved. "Daddy, hot, woo-woo, Daddy." Dad got anxious. "I'm coming back right now. Crystal, don't cry, Daddy's here." The villain beside him. You're just leaving like that." "What about me?" Dad said coldly. "My daughter has a fever. I need to take care of her, so I'm not going." "Deal with those people yourself, with your skills. I'm sure you can handle it." My birth was the result of someone maliciously scheming against the villain Lucas. But unexpectedly, it was his good brother Brandon who fell into the trap and ended up in bed with my birth mother. One time was all it took. After 10 months of pregnancy, the woman obtained Brandon's biological sample and, as soon as I was born, threw me and the paternity test at the doorstep of the Chandler family, in a feverish daze. I dreamed of the time when I was first handed over to my cannon fodder father, encountering my previous father. There's nothing that money can't settle. He quickly handpicked 3 nannies, offering a monthly salary of $50,000, intending to dump me as a burden while he continued to collude with Lucas in their wicked deeds. However, I often cried. I cried when I wet the bed, and I cried when I soiled myself. Even after being cleaned up, the crying continues, cries when held by the nanny. And cries when not held, cries when hungry, and after being fed, has the energy to keep crying, screams so heart-wrenchingly that the entire villa echoes with the baby's wails. The only time I didn't cry was when my father entertained me with a small rattle drum. No matter how the experienced nanny tried to soothe me, nothing worked, and her pleading gaze turned to the baby's biological father. When Dad's attempts failed, and they couldn't just watch me cry myself to exhaustion. He had no choice but to step in, under the nanny's guidance. He clumsily picked me up, miraculously. The moment the baby fell into her father's arms, she stopped crying and even opened her tiny hands, babbling and smiling at her dad. The nanny flattered. "It seems the little miss is very attached to you, sir." Dad stared expressionlessly at my tear-and-snot-covered face, his disgust unmistakable. "Don't smile. You're already ugly, and smiling makes you even uglier." I held in a massive one. And the stench of poop slowly wafted into the nostrils of everyone near me. Dad's face turned green, the nanny's smile froze. He glared at me through gritted teeth. "You little brat, you did that on purpose, didn't you?" I looked at him innocently. "I don't know, I'm just a baby who can't control my pee and poop." Dad's OCD kicked in, feeling as if he'd been contaminated by poop himself, with an imaginary sensation of cockroaches crawling all over his body, without a second thought. He was about to hand me back to the nanny and rush to change his clothes. I stretched out my tiny hand, grabbed his index finger, and shook it while babbling a few sounds. Dad tentatively asked, "Do you want me to wash your butt and change your diaper?" I blink my eyes. Dad frowns. "No way. Do you think you're my ancestor? I've hired a professional nanny to take care of you. Don't be ungrateful." 1 minute later, Dad, with a sour face, follows the nanny to learn how to handle a baby who's made a mess. Put me on the diaper changing pad, remove the dirty diaper and throw it away. Those hands that could deftly disassemble any firearm are now wiping my bottom with warm, moistened wipes, followed by a gentle rinse with warm water. After drying my bottom and applying diaper rash cream, he clumsily fastens a fresh diaper on me. He glared at me unhappily for a long moment and said, "You really are my little ancestor." I giggled while hugging his finger. Something seemed to strike Dad's cold and indifferent heart, making it suddenly soften. He poked my cheek, leaving a little dimple with each poke, and scoffed. "Little brat," I said. "Ah," Dad said, "you don't look that stupid." Quite cute actually. After that day, Dad embarked on a long and exhausting journey of parenting. When Lucas video called Dad, he got a fright. He hesitated and said, "Brandon, how did you get so haggard?" His father's face was pale. His once sharp and domineering eyes now filled with a lifeless resentment. Dark circles hung beneath his eyes, his hair was disheveled and sticking out, and even stubble had sprouted on his chin. The clothes that had fit him perfectly just a few months ago now hung loosely on his frame. To make matters worse, he was holding a rattle to lull me to sleep while simultaneously clutching a stack of company documents to deal with work. A ruthless gangster of black and white, now forcibly transformed into a resentful family man. Looking at myself sitting in the crib, plump and fair, with a healthy rosy glow on my cheeks, babbling in a language no one could understand, Lucas teased, "I remember you nearly died from a gunshot to the chest last time, lying in the hospital for months. But you weren't as thin as you are now, right? Is raising a child really this exhausting?" Dad snapped. "If I hadn't taken that hit for you, would I be suffering like this now?" Lucas clicked his tongue twice, showing no shame. His gaze swept over my face, devoid of any emotion. Somewhere between scrutiny and disdain, his tone was cold and callous. "If you really don't want to raise her, just dump her with a nanny or send her to a good family. It's just a little girl, why bother doing it yourself?" People like him, who've walked in darkness for years, killing brothers, fathers, their hands stained with blood, are born heartless. They don't even love themselves, let alone a troublesome baby. Dad shot him a glare, clearly annoyed by Lucas's attitude. He reached for a cigarette but stopped himself when he remembered I was there. "What do you mean, just a little girl? That's my daughter. I'll raise her if I want to," Lucas said leisurely. If you're happy with it, then so be it. It's not me who'll be dealing with the hassle. I came this time to talk about our collaboration, that project in the West District. Wah, the previously quiet baby suddenly burst into loud wails, the cries so intense they seemed capable of shaking the entire villa to its foundations. Dad exclaimed, "Oh, my little ancestor." Dad set down the documents, flustered as he picked me up, skillfully patting my back and soothing me in a gentle voice. "Is my sweet baby hungry? I'll go make your bottle right away." Lucas stared in bewilderment at his usually cold and intimidating, one-punch-kills-a-bull buddy, who was now radiating a holy aura known as Dad Mode. Lucas said, "About the collaboration." The father snapped impatiently, "Can't you hear my daughter crying? She's crying. I need to make her bottle now. I've been juggling childcare and work for months and I'm exhausted. We'll talk about collaboration next time." Click. The video call ended abruptly. Lucas said, "You're really something." The next day, Lucas came in person. This time, he softened his attitude, bringing 2 boxes of milk powder and a pile of baby toys. Dad had just finished feeding me and didn't hold it against him, discussing the collaboration with him instead. After the deal was finalized, Lucas finally deigned to spare me a glance. Lucas pinched my cheek. I flashed him a milky, sweet, and warm smile, with my big, round, sparkling eyes and rosy lips, babbling and reaching out for a hug. The ruthless villain probably hadn't encountered a baby like me before. Dazed by my smile, he instinctively picked me up, thinking that human infants weren't entirely without merit. So adorable. His heart softened for a moment. The next moment, Lucas froze. It seemed as if some warm liquid had flowed out, soaking his hands and suit. I tilted my head slightly, putting on an innocent and harmless expression. "Holy shit." The villain let out a sharp, piercing scream. The villain's cleanliness obsession surpasses even Dad's. He went to the bathroom and took a 2-hour-long shower. I proudly blew bubbles in Dad's arms. "Big meanie, serves you right for trying to convince Dad to abandon me. Serves you right, doesn't it?" Dad couldn't hide the schadenfreude in his eyes, but still pretended to scold me. "That's your uncle, don't be so rude." I babbled a couple of sounds. After the villain came down, Dad had already calmly changed my diaper, fed me with formula, and lulled me to sleep while humming a little tune. Lucas glared at my sleeping face with a sinister look, grumbling resentfully, "This little brat must be doing it on purpose." Dad shot him an annoyed glance. "Lower your voice when you speak, don't wake her up." I finally managed to get her to sleep. Lucas stretched out his mischievous claws toward my face, clearly about to shake me awake. "I don't care." After provoking me, "She still thinks she can sleep," Dad replied coldly. "If you want to deal with a baby wailing loud enough to disturb the entire villa, go ahead and try." Lucas glanced unhappily at my sleeping face and, after a long pause, reluctantly commented, "She's quite pretty, like you." He asked with rare interest, "What's her name again?" Lucas gave him a strange look. "You haven't named her yet, have you?" Dad really hadn't given me a name. He usually just called me little ancestor, little brat, daughter, or sweetheart. So 2 grown men wore out a dictionary flipping through it. Dad was extremely picky, never satisfied with this or that, feeling no name was good enough for me. Lucas didn't want to keep struggling with him and simply wrote a character on paper. Snow, Crystal Chandler, Crystal, clear and pure, flawless. How about it? She won't repeat our mistakes, walking in the light all her life. How is Crystal doing now? "Sir, please don't worry. The doctor said it's just a common cold. Children have weaker immune systems. Has the fever gone down?" I just took some fever-reducing medicine, and it went down a little. "My daughter's fever is back. Wasn't it just a common cold? Please calm down, parent. Fluctuations in a child's temperature are normal." I struggled to open my eyes wide and saw my father dozing off beside me. He saw that I was awake, poured warm water into my bottle, screwed on the nipple cap, and placed it in my hand. "Crystal, you're awake. Are you thirsty? Have some water." While sucking on the nipple, I secretly glanced at him. Dad's face was pale and thin, with slight dark circles under his eyes from staying up late. He carried a somewhat gloomy aura, yet it did nothing to diminish his beauty. I gazed at his face with infatuation. "Oh, my dear father, I could never get tired of looking at your face." Dad patted my head. "Having long since become a qualified stay-at-home father, are you hungry? How about I make you some baby food? Steamed egg with shrimp paste and snow pear with white fungus," I said. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye, and I saw my dad staying by my side without leaving for a moment. I calculated that the gang fight on the antagonist's side should have ended by now. I asked the system, has my dad's crisis ended this time? The system seemed to be checking the data, and after a while, it replied, it's over. Your dad has successfully avoided this blindness crisis. Great, my dad won't become a one-eyed dragon. What about the villain? I thought of that strikingly beautiful and alluring man who had been quite kind to me, and couldn't help but ask the system again. The system replied, don't worry, the villain has some protagonist aura, the plot hasn't even started yet, so he'll be fine. This day, an uninvited guest entered the hospital room. A person with their left arm in a cast stepped into the ward. Their face was strikingly beautiful and delicate, but their skin was porcelain white, almost translucent, with a sickly pallor, and their lips were very pale. Shedding his usual domineering and frenzied arrogance, he now appeared fragile and strikingly beautiful. Lucas. My big eyes darted around, finally landing on his arm. Didn't the system say the villain would be fine? How did you get hurt? The system was speechless. Host, for a villain as tough as the male lead, usually nothing short of death can harm them. Dad was preparing milk for me and frowned when he saw his condition. You're injured. Lucas plopped down on the VIP ward's sofa, completely unfazed. Just a minor fracture, no big deal. Dad said, what about them? Lucas replied, wiped out. Dad nodded in satisfaction. Oh, that's indeed a minor injury. Then he continued preparing my milk formula. Lucas raised an eyebrow, propping his chin with his uninjured hand, his captivating fox-like eyes turning to me as he began teasing the baby. I heard you can talk now. Come on, Crystal, call me Uncle. Given his handsome face and his status as a patient, I reluctantly obliged. Uncle. Lucas dangled the offer like a cat teasing with a treat. Such a good kid. Uncle just bought a small island not long ago. Warm climate, crystal clear waters, breathtaking scenery. Call me Uncle one more time, and I'll give it to you. How about that? With full dramatic flair, I exclaimed, Uncle. This time, the call was utterly, completely sincere. Lucas burst into laughter. Crystal is so clever. The island is yours now. I'll have your dad handle the paperwork with me another day, I said. Uncle, I love it. 2 years later. The morning light spilled over the wrought iron fences of the Villa district as a Bentley slowly pulled out, winding through various streets before finally stopping at the entrance of a kindergarten. Inside the car, a man in a high-end tailored shirt was carefully adjusting the crooked bow on my pale pink princess dress. Compared to 2 years ago, Father's appearance hadn't changed much, but his demeanor had grown noticeably gentler. 2 years ago, a blood-stained sword, heavy with killing intent. Now, a sword barely wiped clean of blood. Be good and listen to your teacher in kindergarten. If anyone bullies you, tell Daddy, and I'll deal with those bad guys who pick on my baby. The handsome man patted my head, his voice deep yet filled with affection. I nodded obediently and said, okay, Daddy, actually, I don't want to go to kindergarten. With an adult's mind, I have to face a bunch of noisy and childish kids. Along with boring and uninteresting content like teachers teaching them to wash hands, dress, recognize words, and sing nursery rhymes, I feel a bit green in the face. The system said, Host, the second turning point in your father's life will occur in half a month. When he goes to H City for a bidding meeting, he will be tricked by the enemy, and the female lead will help him. Then he will fall in love with her at first sight. The influence of this plot intrusion is extremely strong. You must come up with a foolproof plan to firmly prevent your father from going to H City. As long as he misses this encounter, the plot won't be able to affect him anymore. The system paused for a moment, then added the original plot. Before this, the villain had already found the girl who saved him when he was young, the female lead. After your father falls in love with the female lead, he will develop a rift with the villain, leading to a bitter feud. Coupled with the female lead's official male lead, it will escalate into a life-and-death battle in the later stages. Your father, who was originally destined to lose an eye, will be the first to be eliminated. Host, please prepare to change the tragic fate of the cannon fodder. I said, all right, I understand. Dad carried my backpack and held my hand as we got out of the car. Today is the first day of school, and many parents are holding their children's hands as they arrive. The little ones, each carrying small backpacks, are full of energy, hopping and skipping along the way. One child, clinging to their parent like a koala, is crying uncontrollably and screaming, I don't want to go to school, I want mommy and daddy. The parents and teachers try to comfort the child in soft voices, but this only makes the crying more intense. This outburst sets off a chain reaction. other children start wailing too, clutching their parents' clothes and refusing to let them leave. The kindergarten entrance was as noisy as a vegetable market. Human joys and sorrows do not truly connect, whether it was the curious, chattering children or the ones crying with snot and tears. I found none of it amusing, only loud and irritating. I've always preferred quiet, frowning as I scanned the area. Barely any of the children were calm. The thought of spending my days in the same room with these endlessly energetic kids made me feel like the sky was falling. I'd rather stay at Dad's company. Being the mascot for all the uncles and aunts, letting them pat my head, pinch my cheeks, and braid my hair. Is this kindergarten absolutely necessary? Completely forgetting how he's been tormenting his own father to the brink of exhaustion these past few years. Dad's stature and appearance stood out like a crane among chickens among the crowd of parents, drawing looks of admiration from both teachers and other parents alike. Dad held my hand firmly as we entered the kindergarten, leading me straight to the teacher of my assigned class. Before leaving, he crouched down, patted my head, and said, "Crystal, eat well and pay attention in class. If anyone bullies you, fight back. If you can't win, tell Dad, and I'll deal with them." The teacher's smile stiffened. She clearly wanted to say something about harmony and friendship among children, but knowing the man's status, she remained silent. I shook his hand and said, "Dad, remember to pick me up in the afternoon." Dad smiled and said, "Okay." Sitting in the seat assigned by the teacher, during class, the teacher taught the children to sing nursery rhymes, build with blocks, and count. Between classes, the children were outside playing on the small playground equipment, sliding down the slide, seesawing, and climbing the jungle gym, while I leisurely sat in the classroom reading a business English magazine, which I had taken from my dad's office. A 3 or 4-year-old girl with pigtails, who was very pretty, shyly approached me holding a teddy bear. "Hello, my name is Lucy. Can we be friends? I can give you my teddy bear, and we can play together." I smiled slightly and said, "Hello, my name is Crystal." As I spoke, I pulled out a few candies from the drawer and was about to hand them to her. Suddenly, a chubby little boy appeared out of nowhere, sturdy and strong. He snatched the candies from my hand, muttering, "Mine, mine." My face darkened instantly as I glared at the little boy with a menacing look. The boy was startled but quickly regained his composure. He stuck out his tongue at us, provocatively unwrapped a candy, and popped it into his mouth. "Can't catch me, can't catch me," he taunted. He dashed away in a flash. However, the teacher was watching the children outside and didn't see this scene. The little girl froze, her grape-like eyes welling up with tears. I pulled out another handful of candies from my pocket. "Don't cry, there's more here," the little girl said. I smiled, not bothering to argue with this brat. "It's fine, just a few candies." When I went outside to get some sun, I saw that little fatty snatching things from other kids again, looking smug and pleased with himself. The teacher comforted the crying child, her gaze toward the little fatty clearly tinged with disgust and wariness. "Wilson, it's wrong to bully other kids like this," the little chubby kid said. "Naya, Naya, Naya." My mind was racing with thoughts. That little brat was clearly a spoiled child from a well-off family, the kind who throws tantrums to get whatever they wants, utterly self-centered and domineering. Even the clothes they wore were designer kids wear, and not even the teachers dared to cross them. Their family background must be pretty impressive, I thought idly. No matter how well-off their family was, could they possibly be better off than me? Sucker. Found. At 4:30 in the afternoon, kindergarten was over. Dad came to pick me up. He took my backpack, fastened my seatbelt, and asked gently, "How was your first day at kindergarten? Did anyone bully you?" I thought for a moment and said, "I made a friend. Her name is Lucy. A very pretty girl. The food at kindergarten is good. No one bullied me." Dad drove the car and said, "That's good." At that moment, Lucas called, and Dad raised his hand to answer. "Hey, Brandon." Lucas's voice sounded a bit dazed. Dad said, "Spit it out." Lucas hesitated and said, I think I found her." When I heard there was gossip, I immediately pricked up my ears to listen. Dad stopped the car at a red light. "Found who?" Lucas said. "It's the girl who saved me back then." Dad asked, "Do you like her?" Lucas was silent for a long moment before saying, "Yeah." His father, amazed, replied, "Huh, really? I thought you'd just give her some money or resources as repayment and call it a day. Someone as cold-hearted and profit-driven as you could actually like someone." "Dad, seriously, how could you say something like that?" I heard the sound of a lighter clicking on his end. Lucas seemed to have lit a cigarette, his voice low and hoarse as he said, I just fell for her, okay? Now hurry up and give me some advice. Dad was baffled. If you like her, go after her. What advice can I give? That face of yours has always been unstoppable, Lucas said irritably, but she already has someone she likes. She won't even look me in the face, Dad replied. Then go and take her. Nothing can't be taken. Once you have her, she's yours. A cold smirk appeared on his flawlessly handsome face. As for the one she likes, just get rid of him, later, just exploit her weaknesses. Make her feel isolated and helpless so she has no choice but to rely on you, then won't she be yours? I was dumbfounded. I had thought that after raising a child for 3 years, my dad had become gentler, kinder, and started cultivating his character. But turns out, this guy is even more villainous than the actual villains, Lucas exclaimed in delight. Perfect, that's exactly what I was thinking too. I tried to persuade him. Uncle, forced love doesn't last, Lucas said, ha. Is that you, Crystal? Let me tell you, whether the melon is sweet or not, you won't know until you pluck it. Listen to your uncle. If you set your eyes on something, you must go and take it, seize it, otherwise, it'll just end up in someone else's pocket. I swallowed hard, really wanting to advise them. Could they at least try to follow the law? Also, what the hell are you even teaching, Dad? Dad turned to look at me, the disdain on his face fading, replaced by a fatherly kindness. The hypocrisy was off the charts. You're wrong. Crystal doesn't need to steal what she wants, Dad said. Just let Crystal say the word, and I'll snatch it for her directly. She doesn't need to lift a finger. I asked the system, has my dad always been like this? The system replied, they were all illegitimate children abandoned by powerful families, enduring humiliation in their youth, walking a path of thorns step by step. The consequence of not fighting or being merciful was becoming a corpse. Self-interest, scheming, and plundering have long become their instincts. You can't entirely blame them for developing such a worldview, but those who dwell in darkness naturally yearn for light. Later, the heroine's appearance was like a ray of light, illuminating them, making them rush toward her like moths to a flame, foolishly trying to grasp the moon. But obviously, the female lead will only like the male lead. They are destined to yearn in vain. As the day of Dad's bidding drew nearer, I calmly attended kindergarten as usual. The system couldn't help but feel anxious. Host, have you figured out a way to stop your dad from going to H-City? I said. No rush. That day, I brought a beautiful music box to kindergarten. It could glow and sing. I deliberately walked past the little chubby kid with it in my hand, and the exquisitely small music box instantly caught his attention. His beady eyes immediately glazed over, drool nearly dripping from his mouth, as he shouted loudly, Crystal, give me your music box. I hid the music box behind my back, pouting and saying, no way, Dad just bought this for me, and I've only just started playing with it. The little chubby kid's face instantly turned bright red, veins bulging on his forehead, as he roared angrily, give it to me, I want the music box. With that, he extended his chubby, meaty hand, grabbed the edge of the music box, and yanked hard. I clung tightly to the music box, my little face turning red with effort as we remained locked in a stalemate, the box shaking violently between us. The chubby boy suddenly exerted all his strength, leaning forward and pushing with everything he had, shoving me backward in an instant. I completely lost my balance and flew backward like a kite with its string cut. I aimed for the raised edge of a floor tile and deliberately slammed my shin into it with full force. Crack. The system was stunned. Host, wait, you. Excruciating pain shot through my leg. Though my heart remained cold and calm, my face instantly turned deathly pale, and I burst into loud, dramatic sobs. The chubby kid didn't feel guilty at all. Instead, he shook the music box at me and said, serves you right for not giving it to me. Teacher Lily heard my crying and rushed over, seeing my swollen calf. Her heart skipped a beat. Crystal, what happened? Your leg? Tears kept falling as I pointed at the smug little boy. Wah. He took my music box and pushed me. Other teachers arrived and saw the scene. Despairingly, 2 words surfaced in my heart. It's over. Teacher Lily immediately called for emergency assistance and also notified both sets of parents. The system panicked. Host, are you okay? I glanced down at my calf. It's nothing, just a minor fracture, a small injury, the system said. You call this a minor injury? I answered irrelevantly. Dad probably won't go to H-City anymore. I don't know what my dad said on his end, but he must have been very angry because the teacher looked like she was about to cry. the ambulance arrived very quickly. The medical staff carefully secured me to the stretcher, lifted me into the ambulance, and took me to the hospital. By the time my father arrived, he saw me lying on the hospital bed, my face still streaked with tears, pale and fragile, my eyes swollen like walnuts, and my right leg encased in a thick white cast. When I saw my father, I wanted to throw myself into his arms for comfort as usual, but my lower body wouldn't move, so I began to sob quietly again. "Daddy, it hurts." My father seemed to have come straight from some meeting, dressed in a suit that was slightly disheveled, his brows were tightly knit. His face dark and terrifying, the palpable killing intent making the medical staff nearby tremble with fear. Dad leaned over and gently pulled me into his arms, his voice carrying an eerie sense of comfort and gentleness. "Crystal, don't be afraid, it won't hurt, Daddy will get justice for you." The system hesitated. Is the next line something like, "The weather's getting cold, the James family is going bankrupt"? Me, probably. I clung to my father's lapel, hiding the calculation in my eyes. "Daddy, can you stay with me? It hurts so much." All thoughts of tenders and business trips vanished from my father's mind, replaced by overwhelming guilt. "It's my fault for being careless. I was wrong. I'll stay with you until you recover." System, damn, impressive. Just then, Monica arrived, seeing me so weak and pale. Her heart ached instantly, and tears welled up. "Oh, my poor baby, that damned little brat did this to Crystal." Dad said calmly, "Monica, take care of Crystal for now. I'm going out to handle this matter." Monica nodded hurriedly. Dad left the ward and closed the door behind him. I didn't care about the outcome for the little fat kid's family, as long as Dad stays in the capital and doesn't go to H-City, missing the encounter with the female lead. Everything will be fine. During my recovery period, Dad stayed by my side every moment, even abandoning the bid without hesitation and moving company affairs to the hospital room for handling. He took care of me, cooked delicious meals for me, told stories to lull me to sleep, and accompanied me through rehabilitation. Didn't even catch a glimpse of the female lead's hair. Lucy came to visit me and chatted with me, saying she hadn't seen the little fatty at the kindergarten since that day. TSK, Dad's efficiency is truly top-notch. After I was discharged from the hospital, I was nurtured back to health as a patient, practically gaining a full circle of weight. As for Dad, I stole a guilty glance at him. He had become so emaciated that if not for his face holding up, his wandering on the streets would truly resemble a zombie. During that time, Lucas came to see me once, but before he could even ask how I was doing, my father's haggard and pale appearance completely shocked him. Lucas muttered, "If I ever marry Rachel, I'm absolutely not having kids. Rachel is the female lead. You're getting ahead of yourself. Nothing's even settled yet." Dad mercilessly scoffed, "Marriage my ass. Has Rachel even accepted you?" Lucas felt as if an arrow had pierced his heart, his defenses shattered, and he muttered darkly, "She'd better be smart and not push me." I kept a straight face. It wasn't like I hadn't tried to make the villain give up on the female lead. There are plenty of fish in the sea. Why obsess over one flower? I wanted to pull him out of the plot, but unfortunately, the female lead has an irresistible appeal to the villain. She just won't let go, and even snapped at me. I'm exhausted. Let go of the savior complex and respect others' fate. I'd better save my dad first. The current plot has reached the point where the villain desperately pursues, harasses, the female lead, who tries in vain to escape his advances, while the male lead suddenly intervenes, creating a tangled and complicated three-way relationship. Meanwhile, my dad successfully stepped off the chessboard, avoiding the pains of love and disability, only to endure the struggles of raising a child. Learning from this lesson, Dad then enrolled me in an elite kindergarten. The children there were mostly young masters and misses from prominent families, well-mannered and emotionally stable, and they were all aware of each other's backgrounds. Even the most spoiled and willful children were warned by their parents not to bully their classmates. I had a fairly pleasant time there. 2 more years passed. Still the same main theme. The villain was caught up in gang fights. While my dad worked to raise the kids, the villain imprisoned the female lead. While my dad worked to raise the kids, the female lead ran away. The villain went to catch her. She ran. He chased. Neither could escape. My dad was at work raising kids. The villain went crazy opposing the male lead. My dad was still at work raising kids. When news came from the villain's side that the female lead had run away again, Dad was telling me a bedtime story. The princess imprisoned the prince, took out an AK-47 to kill the useless king, became the empress herself, kept a bunch of handsome male concubines, and lived happily ever after. Alright, time to sleep. In Lucas's eyes, the male lead Simon was practically sent by heaven to torment him, ridiculously strong, impossible to kill no matter what he tried. Originally, he thought this was his own business and didn't intend to involve my dad. But after the stepmother escaped again with the male lead's help, and the male lead outmaneuvered him in the business arena, Lucas completely lost it. He went straight to his dad. Brandon, do me a favor, let's team up and crush that bastard Simon. Dad agreed without hesitation, but then stood him up, because I was recently stalked by a pedophile. My dad found out and nearly went crazy with anger. Dad immediately took some people to capture the pedophile at an abandoned factory, castrated him, beat him half to death, and then spent the next few days gathering evidence to successfully send the pedophile to prison, instructing the prison to take good care of him. Afterward, Dad felt like he had forgotten something. But since he thought whatever he forgot couldn't be important, he didn't bother with it. So when Lucas was once again driven to frustration by Simon, Dad belatedly came to offer help. Do you still need my assistance? Lucas held a bracelet mournfully. No need, Rachel is already pregnant with that scoundrel Simon's child. I've completely lost all hope, Dad said, as if you ever had any hope to begin with. The system expressed some pity. The villain is so pitiful, no matter how hard he tries. He can't win. The first two major crises your dad faced are already over, and this time there's no real danger at all. Won't you let your dad help the villain? I took a bite of the apple and said nothing. The male lead is the chosen one, unbeatable. My dad has no grudge against him. Rather than letting him bump into a wall with the villain and then having to clean up the mess after losing, it's better to have him help me deal with that disgusting creep. I rubbed my arms and said to the system, damn, that pedophile has been following me for 2 days, giving me the creeps. At least we can still make some use of this trash. The system was speechless. The male lead and female lead are about to get married. Lucas came to my house to drink sorrows with my dad, mourning his lost love. Now, my dad, who's fully devoted to raising kids and has never been in a relationship, couldn't understand. Neither could I, who remained single until death in my past life. For both of us back then, raising kids and changing Dad's fate had already exhausted all our strength. For the two of us now, love is far less important than living well in the present. But still, we silently respect it. Dad drank with Lucas, while I sipped juice by their side. Lucas got drunk, his strikingly beautiful face flushed red. Soon, his tears fell one by one. Fragile as a child, clutching Dad's sleeve tightly and sobbing, Brandon, I have no hope left, do I? Father wiped his sweaty forehead and pulled him into his embrace, just like when they were little, two wounded wolf cubs, wary yet clinging to each other for warmth. They were brothers, companions, yet also rivals, adversaries. They were cold-hearted and ruthless, scheming against each other without hesitation, yet never hesitated to lend a hand when the other was in trouble. One a vicious cannon fodder, the other a sinister villain. They are true ambitious individuals and egoists, unwilling to say the other is the most important in their lives, but absolutely indispensable. A rare hint of gentleness appeared in Dad's stern eyes as he said, Lucas, you still have me and Crystal. You will never be alone. Time flies like flowing water. After my father and I continuously worked on persuading him, Lucas finally let go of the female lead and also freed himself. The male lead and the female lead held a grand wedding. And after 10 months of pregnancy, the female lead gave birth to a son named Jacob. But none of it has anything to do with me. Until I went to Jacob's first birthday celebration with my dad. Lucas was abroad negotiating with someone at the time, so he just sent a gift and didn't attend. At the banquet, the male lead, Simon, was dressed in a white suit, his tall and slender figure resembling bamboo. His appearance was of the refined and handsome type, with any sharp edges well concealed beneath that exterior. Like an elegant and timeless ink painting, his peach blossom eyes carried a hint of amusement, and as the light shifted, they exuded a silent, captivating allure. He's completely different from the villain and my dad. One is gentle as jade, one is dazzling like fire, and one is cold as a blade, yet all equally black-hearted. And the female lead truly lives up to being the woman pursued by 3 men in the original plot, a formidable person who even managed to escape from the villain's grasp time and again on her own. She doesn't have the naive, simple, and delicate appearance of a cliché romance novel's heroine. On the contrary, her features are bold and radiant, blazing like the scorching sun, open and unapologetic. With a slight curve of her red lips and a flicker of her eyes, waves of charm ripple forth. As if capable of dispelling all the darkness around her, I still remember how she saved the villain in the story, leaving him haunted by her memory for years. Night, the beautiful little girl dragged the disheveled young villain along as they sprinted wildly, twisting and turning through the alleys before nimbly climbing up a tree. Reach out, quick. The little villain reached out, and the little girl pulled him up the tree without hesitation. The little girl beamed with a radiant smile. Little brother, how about I avenge you? The little villain lifted his bruised and battered face, but his eyes were like stagnant water, gloomy, withdrawn, and lifeless, like a lost ghost with nowhere to belong. The little girl showed no fear at all, pulling out a slingshot from her pocket along with the small stones she had collected along the way. Soon after, chaotic footsteps echoed through the alley. Where did that brat run off to? The beams from their flashlights swung wildly, and their cursing voices were especially jarring in the quiet night. Keep looking, that jinx can't have gone far. The little girl aimed her slingshot at a rather unmentionable part of the leading thug's anatomy and let fly. Ah, one of them screamed in agony. My balls, damn it, my head. Another person, terrified of getting shot in the groin, quickly covered himself but tripped over a raised section of the road. He then collided with someone else, causing everyone to tumble into a tangled heap. The little girl let out a triumphant laugh. Ha 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 ha, serves you right. Where did this little bitch come from? You, a loud smack echoed. Ah, my tooth. The little girl's voice was clear and nonchalant. Your mouth stinks, go wash it. The young antagonist turned to look at the girl's bold eyebrows and eyes. His dim gaze seemingly brightened a little by the moonlight. Come on, let's go. The little girl moved nimbly. Standing atop the wall, in a few quick moves, she descended the other side, then turned back to find a rope and helped the young antagonist down as well. The little girl taught the young villain, if you encounter this situation again, don't be timid, don't be afraid, hurt him, cripple him, only then will that filthy hyena dare not try again. If you can't win right away, retreat temporarily, build up your strength, then ambush him and take him down. The young villain nodded thoughtfully. It's getting late, let me walk you home. Standing at his doorstep, the little girl smiled softly, her eyes bright, warm and welcoming. Though it was a pitch-black night, she burned like a blazing flame, dispelling the bone-chilling cold. Well then, little brother, good evening. Yet the world is impermanent, and things go round and round. In the end, it all boils down to one phrase, destined to meet but not to be. Dad glanced at Jacob, lost in thought, and gave my paw a squeeze. Crystal, did I forget to hold your 1-year-old ceremony back then? I said, well, if it didn't happen, it didn't happen. It's not that important anyway, Dad said with heartache and guilt. Others have it, but you don't. I sighed helplessly. Dad, do you remember how busy you were back then? Did you really think balancing between black and white was easy? The guests were all eagerly discussing what item Jacob would pick. I wonder what the young master will grab. If he grabs the stethoscope, does that mean he'll become a doctor in the future? It's just a formality. That's the eldest son of the Smith family. He'll most likely inherit the Smith family's legacy. Did you actually take it seriously? I politely greeted the male and female leads. Hello, Uncle Simon, Aunt Rachel. Simon couldn't resist patting my head, smiling gently. Crystal's here, I shamelessly replied. I came to mooch some food and drinks. Rachel crouched down, smiling as she touched my face. Long time no see. Crystal, you've grown taller and prettier. I chuckled twice. I think so too. After greeting them, I stepped forward and looked curiously at the 1-year-old child on the round table. His face was delicate and beautiful, with fair and tender skin, making it easy to imagine how stunning he would be when he grew up, truly worthy of being the son of the male and female leads. Except for the little baby, there were all sorts of items for the 1-year-old ceremony placed on the table: a pen, books, an abacus, a golf club, a stethoscope, a toy car model. But the little one didn't even glance at them. With a pair of peach blossom eyes inherited from the male lead, he stared straight at me, babbled twice, and crawled toward me. Along the way, he pushed aside any items that got in his way. I stood there calmly, wanting to see what he intended to do. A slightly cool little hand reached up and touched my face. I was momentarily stunned. At that moment, my dad's terrified shout rang in my ears. Simon, you bastard, get your son's hand off my daughter's face. Off. His calling out wouldn't have been a big deal, but the moment he did, all the guests' eyes were on us. The sound startled the little one so much that he wrapped both arms around my neck and then clung to me with his whole body. I held him without changing my expression. It's not like I could just pull him off and throw him away, right? Tears welled up in those peach blossom eyes as the little one slowly uttered a few words, looking utterly wronged. Pretty, sister, scared, my heart almost melted from the cuteness, so adorable. Dad couldn't hold back any longer. He immediately plucked Jacob off me and stared expressionlessly at this little, green tea act. His father stole his brother's woman. And now this tiny thing grabbed nothing at his first birthday ceremony except his own daughter. Fuck off and stay away. Jacob flailed his limbs in confusion before returning to his father's embrace. Dad forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes. President Smith, please keep an eye on your little brat. My daughter isn't someone just anyone can match. Simon comforted his aggrieved son while smiling modestly. It's just children playing around. Nothing serious. Why get so worked up? President Chandler, Dad didn't like this smiling tiger one bit and sneered coldly. It better be. The system hesitated. Host, I said. The system bit its little handkerchief and said, I suddenly saw a thin red thread connecting you and Jacob. I exclaimed in shock. I just hugged him once. How did we get connected by a red thread? The system was also excited. Don't you remember this is his 1-year-old ceremony? The first thing he grabbed was you. Even I want to complain about this fate between you two. I glanced at the adorable little baby with fair, tender skin. Isn't this the kind of absurd, over-the-top plot that only happens in novels? The system replied. Have you forgotten that you're currently inside a novel? Of course, it's going to be as dramatic as possible. The system continued. However, the red thread of fate isn't that strong. The final outcome still depends on you, because you changed your father's destiny, freeing him from the plot's constraints, and you, the host, are also someone who exists outside the storyline. The heaven can't control you. The two of you are fated. But if you truly resist, it might remain an unfulfilled destiny. I smiled and said, even if there's fate between us, it wouldn't be now. I'm 7 years old, and he just turned 1. Our growth paths don't align. By the time he's in elementary school, I'll already be in college. We wouldn't even be able to play together. While my dad was skillfully deflecting the conversation with others, not paying attention to me, I walked up to Jacob again. Jacob sat obediently on the table, staring at me without blinking. Sister, I'm totally smitten by the cuteness. So adorable. I must have been this cute when I was little, I thought narcissistically. Dad saw me staggering toward him at that moment, immediately cursed, fuck, stubbed out his cigarette butt and threw it into the trash, opened the window to its fullest, and waved away the lingering smoke in the air. Dad, that was the most sincere blessing for a child, healthy and safe, joyful and carefree. The rest, leave it to time. On the way home, I lay on Dad's back, swinging my legs. Dad, when will Uncle Lou come back? I miss him. Dad adjusted his hold under my bottom to keep me from slipping. It'll be a couple more days. Me, all right. I also want to ask him when he can take me to that island he gave me. Dad, I'll take you when you're on vacation. A little while later, Dad, your teacher said you scored 100 in both Chinese and math. What would you like to eat? I'll cook it for you tonight. I started ordering enthusiastically. Coke chicken wings, braised fish, shrimp paste with green peppers. Dad's eyes softened with tenderness. Coming right up. Dad, 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 I love you. Dad suddenly smiled. Crystal, I love you too. After hearing the story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your